as you are aware, GameTech is a very wide concept at the moment. A lot of people are looking at GameTech from a software point of view. They're looking at GameTech from a hardware point of view. They're looking at it from tools, services. The list goes on. When trying to find a definition for it, the closest thing that could be found about it is that GameTech is defined as software, hardware, services, tools that are designed or used in the gaming industry throughout the game's lifecycle. There's also a bonus definition I'm adding here that is kind of related. Basically, it's about gamification, which is the process of adding games or game-like elements to something to encourage participation. That's the Merriam-Webster dictionary. So when it really comes down to, GameTech has been an evolving technology. It started off with the simplest products, and it's moved on forward to develop its own tools or create tools to support it in other industries. A little bit of history. Games have existed since the beginning of time. Basically, we created games to entertain and challenge each other. Basically, video games allowed us to experience a new form of entertainment, and it allowed us to experiment beyond the tools that we had. Video games actually started back in 1958, where William Higginbotham, and I hope I'm not butchering the name, wanted to show that computers can be used to entertain instead of war. So he took the first game was called Tennis for Two, and it was just a game designed over a cathode ray tube, a cathode ray oscillograph to basically had a game like ping pong run on. Then it just evolved. Atari came in. Arcades began to become popular. Games started utilizing whatever technology that they could get, and just evolved. Where you saw, and over here you're seeing the evolution of Nintendo games, where you started off with Mario just in a very simple shape, moving on to have his own world, moving through a side scroller, and now moving on to a new 3D environment where you can not only play alone, but you can play with others. Games have changed. Anybody that's looking at this and understanding that this is just about 25 years in difference, you can see that how much hardware and technology has impacted the gaming industry, and it changed the way that we are experiencing our games. Better graphics, better visuals, faster performances, online multiplayer. We're no longer stuck to the old method of just sitting in a home using a computer or a console and to play games. With that, it really is important to define the scope of our GameTech talk. So it was defined earlier that GameTech is basically tools, software, hardware, resources available to the gaming industry. But these tools are sometimes specifically designed for that gaming industry. Take, for example, game engines. Game engines have been designed with the intent to be used in the game industry. There are certain solutions, such as Substance, that were designed for the movies and games industry in mind. Photoshop is a general use tool that's used by video game developers, that's being used by artists, designers, and there's so on. With time, these tools have become to grow and become more specific. Newzo introduced the game development ecosystem, which defined 4 areas of development, 4 areas of the game tech industry. They are basically development, operations, growth, and market analysis. In the development side, you've got engines like the Unreal Engine, Godot, Unity, Cocos. These are engines designed to create games. The lovely thing about them is they're being designed to create more than that. They're being designed in the educational industry. They're being used in the archivist industry, and even presentations are being made using game engines these days. You've got software management tools. These are tools that exist in the cloud, so game developers can utilize them to have better source control, to have better team collaboration, and moving forward with those things. A good example of that would be Perforce, would be Git, those tools that actually help developers move on forward. R tools is a little bit of a tricky subject, but it goes down to the boilerplate of 2D tools, 3D tools, animation tools, and content creation tools. Basically, when it comes to audio, and this is where it becomes a little bit tricky, because sometimes art tools and audio tools they overlap in certain areas. Localization is another area of game development that is very important when you're trying to access a global market. So there are tools that actually offer real-time localization services, kind of like Google Translate, but in a more project management point of view. When you're looking at developing a game, if that game has been developed using Unreal Engine, that game has been developed using the English language. Down the line, you're going to have to think about expanding it. You might want to add the French language. You might want to add Arabic language. So there are tools that help with this process. Now, roughly speaking, game development companies usually spend around anywhere between $10,000 to $50,000 just to localize one game, and that adds a lot of the development overhead. So localization tools actually help reduce that number by a lot. You also got middleware software, and that software are tools that help reduce development time in some cases, and in some cases introduce more collaboration. A good example, you've got SpeedTree, which actually generates a lot of procedural foliage, a lot of procedural trees in your games. Moving forward, you've got tools that help you with providing better audio in your game. So think about them as plugins or add-ons to the entire development process, designed to reduce resources used to develop the game. Audio tools, it's very straightforward, and when you look at it from a very simple perspective, you've got Adobe Audition, you've got even sound synthesis software, and instrument softwares. Moving on to a little bit of a more relevant topic, it comes to the operations section. Cloud services are now becoming very popular when it comes to handling operations. As to the previous presentations that were going on, we talked about how the cloud can actually reduce the amount of resources required on your end in terms of capital investments and so on and so forth. You can monitor the performance of your games and who is actually using what, and is there any type of load balancing that you'll need to utilize. Platforms for those are quite different, but platforms in this sense means the areas where you're actually able to handle your operations. A good example of that would be Steam, to sell and share your work. Epic Games Game Store, the Unity Asset Store. You've got platforms such as the Facebook, You've got Facebook Oculus Store. You've got other areas where you're actually able to handle the selling operation of your games. Then you've got ad monetization, which is basically a staple at this point for a lot of games. So you've got AdSense, you've got yeah, the list is quite big, but the simple part of it is there are tools, softwares that help with your monetization of ads in these games. And sometimes ad monetization becomes a little bit intermingled with ad mediation, and which is ad mediation is you being able to go out of the normal network of, let's say, Google AdSense, and enter other networks where you can actually start sharing your ads to other or should I say receiving ads from other networks. You've got game analytics. Game analytics, where you're actually getting information about your games, about what's going on with them, who's using them, the platforms that they're running on. You've got this works with Firebase. This works with AWS tools, and so on and so forth. Customer engagement tools are also another beast, where you're actually looking at tools that will actually help with engaging with your customers. Infrastructure and cloud services are included, such basically reduce the overhead that you need for your game. Growth is also another type of aspect that you need to look into. You've got ad attribution and user acquisition analytics that are actually provided with certain tools, user acquisition tools, influencer marketing that helps a lot with growth of your tools, App Store optimization, and ad creators. App Store optimization, such as the AWS Store and the Google Store, can help your products be discovered more better through optimization. And market analysis is more about analyzing your market and understanding where you're moving forward. Another aspect that isn't included in the Newzo spectrum, because they're looking at GameTech from software point of view, is the hardware aspect, where you're looking at an entire industry, such as the processors industry, the consoles industry, graphic cards, VR devices, handhelds, motion captures, video games accessories, and virtual production rigs, which we'll go into in a bit. These hardwares have contributed to the growth of the video games industry, specifically in the mobile market, which actually dominates the industry at the moment. Now, let's go to a little bit of more numbers again. Let's go to a little bit more of numbers instead of talks. The video games industry has been valued at 152 billion in 2019. And as you've seen, it has grown to 159 billion in 2020. Basically, it's experiencing a 10% year-on-year growth average, with the mobile market, having its true impact back in 2007, when the mobile industry has been, when the mobile industry has seen a huge growth. The distribution of that has shown that smart devices are actually really overtaking the market, and they're also having a good impact towards the video games industry in terms of growth. In comparison, the sports industry is about 488 billion globally, according to Statista and Newzo. TV movies industry is about 286 billion, and that includes streaming, film, TV shows, and other segments as part of the TV and movie industry. The games industry was valued at 152, but 159 now, and the music industry was valued at 47 billion back in 2019. The global shares of the market has been distributed. The distribution is a little bit disparate, but North America has seen a huge share. Has had a huge share, but has shifted towards the Asian market. The Latin America is actually seeing growth, and Brazil is showing true advancements in that area. The Europe, Middle East, and North Africa is acquired 23% of the market, while Asia alone is taking around 47 billion of the percent, 47% of that market, with 72 billion dollars in worth. Japan alone has around 11 billion dollars, is actually catching around 11 billion dollars annually from the games industry. Now, what were the factors of that growth? People wanted to have alternative entertainment options, and you've also got the introduction of disruptive technologies and the invention of innovative financial models in games, and the growth of the ecosystem that actually helped enable the growth of that sector. So there is a huge shift in digital economies to consumer trends towards the video games industry. There is a national interest in the culture of video games, where countries are recognizing them as having true potential. Franchises are actually now entering the adoption of video game. There is basically an exchange of franchises between actual markets and the video game industry. For example, you've got Monopoly moving into adding video game characters into their roster. Pepsi introducing Pepsi Man as part of their marketing campaign back when they were entering the video game. They wanted to tap into the video game market. The book that turned into a game turned into a TV series, The Witcher, has actually seen a huge interest in that point, and it's debatable whether the book or the game actually influenced the TV series. Esports is huge and is seeing a huge rise, estimated to be at around 4 billion, estimated to reach about 4 billion in 2023. Game franchises are being turned into good movies, and for those of you, video game fans and movie fans, it's a huge difference between the old Super Mario movie that was abysmal at that time. And GameTech is now starting to cross sectors. So it's no longer about entertainment, it's also about being more productive in certain areas and helping that department. So I'm really going to go quick on this point, but esports has been a huge disruptive to the sports industry, and it is gaining more viewership as more consumer behavior is changing towards digital games. To give you an idea about it, Dota back in 2019 gave the first place winners $15 million as a prize pool, and they had a huge amount of viewership. Fortnite basically had a $3 million first place prize pool, with Evo also growing and now being acquired by Sony. The esports ecosystem is growing towards being more self-sustained, and the ultimate benefactors of that are basically the publishers and the game creators. So how has the gaming technology crossed over to other industries? So looking at it from a simple point of view, you've got movies, shows, and news. So why are movies, shows, and news utilizing video game technology? Referencing this is you've got the Mandalorian moving towards virtual production to help reduce production costs and production times. Safari has had an interesting case where it used to take about 3 months to produce a single episode. They've reduced that time to about 3 weeks, and other companies such are utilizing video game production techniques to introduce new episode TV shows. So the one on the right is actually from a show on Nickelodeon called Meet the Voxels. Safari is an interesting case where you're looking at faster iterations to their revision process and earlier decision-making support for their games. So for their TV show, which was which was, I think, which started started back in 2017, 2018. They also were really happy with the ability to reuse the assets and the brand consistency of their production. Star Wars Rogue One used virtual production techniques to actually help actors perform better with virtual characters that were added later. Neil Blomkamp, the guy that was responsible for many movies, especially including Neil Blomkamp, the South African movie director, tried his hand by using the Unity engine to design movies. And Pixmondo is now a studio that specializes in virtual production, where most of what they do is utilizing LED screens and virtual cameras to film certain scenes. The Weather Channel and the Weather Channel in the US is utilizing real-time video game technologies to have virtual sets that are larger than life in their games, in their virtual products. And architectural visualization has benefited a lot from this, as architecture firms are now able to visualize their designs to their clients and make modifications on the fly. CX4, basically it's a company that designs medicine, that actually creates medical products. And medicines are using VR technology with the Unreal Engine to create new medication. Thanks to the VR technology, they are able to actually move forward and have a better understanding of the components that they use in their medicine. Hardware is a lovely story. At the moment, you've heard of the demand for chips and processors globally, and some people are attributing this to the rise of Bitcoin use and the other parts, but it's also attributed to the demand of entertainment from different sectors. So the TV industry, the car industry, the console industry, the PC markets are in huge demand of hardware products